As and Above Below, Part 2. You see, throughout thousands of years, people who have gone within have discovered that all that which is in is also that which is out. And under that presumption, then we have to know that everything is the same and we're all one. And if we are all one, then it's reasonable to presume that we are God. And when you have spiritual experiences, supernatural experiences, many of those will tell you also that you are God. But because the vast majority of people are ignorant and afraid, then the last thing they want to do is to go inside to deep levels of contemplation, questioning the nature of the universe, because what happens when you do that, you start to get answers that you're probably not looking for. And people are afraid of that. And how many people do we know who are afraid of meditating, are afraid of going under hypnosis, when the fact of it is they're under it all day long, every single day, but they don't even know it? But if you ask them if they've got anxiety or they want to quit smoking or something, if they want to do some hypnosis, oh no, something might go wrong with my brain and I'll end up in a coma, and you know, all this sort of nonsense. So people are terrified of everything, and that's what prevents them from knowing that they are God. Now, when we look at the bigger picture, we can see that measure that has been implanted within human psyche, because it's very pervasive, and so it obviously is there for a reason. And when you look into the deep realms, then you discover what the reason is. And the reason is because once you know that you are God, then you know that this is a fiction. And so then you will no longer believe in it, and there will be many things that you wouldn't want to do, because maybe you feel as if it's pointless, and there's no point in being afraid, there's no point in working all your life, you know, to do this, to do that. There's not a lot of point in preventing illness, there's no fear of dying, and all this sort of thing, because you know you are it. You know you are the one. And when you know this, then for some people this world becomes a playground. Now for me, for the past 14 years, what it's done for me is emancipated me from the tethers of my ego. Because my ego was very driven and it wanted all the chattels what the world could offer. And I had many of them. I had Jaguars and four-wheel drive houses on 3 continents, and so I had a lot of property, travelling all over the world and doing many, many wonderful things, and that was all great. But I spent all that money, and now I've had my wings metaphorically clipped, because I've done all that and I don't mind. And I want to live a more sedentary life in any case. So in my book, I'll tell a story about when I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa, 20,000 feet. And I thought I'd almost breathed my last breath on that mountain. So I've had 4 very close scrapes with death, and I live to tell the tale. But knowing now that I am the cosmos, I can't see no purpose in labouring for superficial things. And so instead of working hard, which I always did, grabbing at money and material things, I now work equally as hard. I've always worked hard. I've got a hard-working ethic. And so, since I started to have a shift and question this reality, I then started, instead of working 10 hours a day, I would read for 10 hours a day. And then I learned to do hypnosis, and then I put myself under hypnosis, and I can do that anytime I want to. Learn to meditate, so meditate every single day, sometimes for several hours, and I've done that for the past 14 years. And so all my time now is dedicated to more of an insight of what I am, what life is. And when I learn about what I am, I also learn about what you are. Because you are shards of me. Now, I know there's still a malingering infestation of Christians on this channel because of my incredible magnetism. They can't go away. As much as I decry their dog-headed God, Jehovah, they still want to watch my videos and gain great insight, because deep down they know that what I'm saying is true, and they have been bowing down and praying to a dog-head evil demon for their lives. As far as Christ goes, it's just a serving suggestion of how to be a human being, to live in the best possible life with one another. Then you take on Christ consciousness, and so I don't find anything wrong with that. But most certainly, Christ is no more the Son of God than you or I are, and he even said this in the book. We're all sons of God. And he was a son of man and a son of God, but of course we're all sons of God, and so we're all shards of God consciousness. So some of you, may take with a pinch of salt when I proclaim my divinity, and any of you with religious inclinations will find that blasphemous. But if you ever wise up, then you realise that the Awakened Brave has been right all along, and that consciousness is God. And everything comes out of consciousness, and what we do is to prevent ourselves from knowing that we are God. Listen carefully, people, this is the bomb I'm dropping on you now. To prevent ourselves from knowing that we are God, because that would have possibly a powerfully negative effect on lots of people, because they would feel purposeless, without direction. They wouldn't know how to interact with people. They couldn't possibly tell people that they've discovered that they are God like I, because they're not as powerful as me. They're much lesser people, you see. But I don't have a problem with that, because I am God and I do what I want. And anybody that's got a problem with me is just little shards of my consciousness, and I just squish them like a gnat, like that, you see. But you see, what this notion and fear is to keep us suppressed, keep us contained in the human ego, and to prevent us from knowing that we are God. And so what we do is we create gods all out there, so we can always be looking out there and in fear of out there, and spend our whole lives out there when really there is no out there, because it's all in here. And so we are kidding ourselves, we are deluding ourselves, we are under our own hypnosis, because the last thing we want to do is just settle our minds and hearts and go in to discover that we are God, and all that stuff that is supposed to be out there is our projection. We are projecting it all, we are creating it all, every last bit of it. It is coming outside of us. And if you don't believe me, then cut your hands and feet off so you can't feel any shit, and then see if you've got anything out there, and then cut your nose off and pop your ears and pull your eyes out, and then see if you can actually sense anything out there. You won't be able to, but you will be able to still have this in here, because that's all there is, people. There's just in here consciousness. And so, did you hear what I said there? We keep ourselves terrified, we traumatize ourselves to keep us in our homunculus, in our mini-me's. We keep ourselves in our mini-me's so we can have this human experience. Because if you know that you are God, then that might prevent you from doing all the human things. Now, if I knew that I was God as deeply as I do now, 14 years ago, then I don't know how that would have changed things. Let's say if I knew I was God, 50 years ago, 50 years ago, because pretty well knew 14 years ago, but 50 years ago, would I have done all the things that I most certainly wouldn't have been running after paper and chasing material goods, because they wouldn't have meant anything to me. I'm like, well, fucking hell, why do I want to do this? Why do I want to do that? Why I want to act as if you're only young once and you got to cram it all in, this and the other? You see, this is the thing about we only live a maximum of about 100 years. And there's an optimum amount of years in between, let's say from about 15 years old to about 55, maybe 65 these days for some people. And then you've got to cram life in. But if you knew that you were God, then you wouldn't need to do that. And if we lived for many more hundreds of years, then there'd be no hurry to do anything. And so we doubtless wouldn't really achieve anything, because we wouldn't feel that pressure that we've got to make hay while the sun shines, And so whatever goes on in this dimension is all perfect. It absolutely has to be perfect, because the universe is genius, and there's nothing that's created in the universe which isn't for reasons, even if we can't comprehend them. They're all for very powerful reasons, but when you start to reason with a rational mind as to why we only live to be 100 years old, and as to why we are closed down from knowing that we are God, and as to why we are fearful of death, and all these things, when you know those things, it's kind of, I get it, yeah, okay, that's cool. That's a good plan, that is. And that's fun, that's genius. That's some genius shit you've got going on there, God consciousness. So, when this body perishes, then our consciousness goes back to the pool of consciousness. And in my book, I do some very elaborate illustrations of what happens to our consciousness, and I speak about all different realms of consciousness, spirits, and relationship with God and Satan and angels and demons, and all different sorts of things. It really is. The more I think about it, I think it's a fucking great book. Actually, it's a brilliant book. It's a one-stop for spiritual development. Anybody that's on the path and is really into this stuff, you'll pick up that book and it'll be your Bible. It will be your religious Bible. You won't need no fucking Christian Bible or Old Testament Bible. What the fuck? You'll toss that motherfucker out straight away, realising that's a crock of shit, and all you need to know about the New Testament is in my book. So there you go, people. One book to save your soul. Well, what do you think about that, huh?